It's not going to be just a basic work out the area of the circle. They are going to be a bit harder. And so please make sure you are asking questions as you go along. Right, before we get into that, I just want you, if you didn't take screenshots of this on Monday, to take a screenshot of these 4 formulae, because these are the formulae that we use to work out the area of the shapes that we work with. So we've got a square, rectangle, triangles, and circle. Those are the 4 different formulas that we need to know. Again, sometimes teachers or sometimes schools are different. Sometimes we give you these formulae, sometimes we don't. My advice is just learn these 4, because from these 4 you can pretty much do anything. And so if you know them, at least you're not sitting stuck about which formula should you be choosing off the ones you've been given. If you know which is which, you're sorted. Okay, so screenshot this if you haven't already. We did do this on Monday, so you should have it, but just in case, for whatever reason you don't, there it is, and you're going to use these formulae now in the examples. That's something in mind. Okay. Right. There was a lot going on in my planning situation in life. It just was what it was. Okay, so A, B, and C, we've got going here, is what it is. Hello. Alrighty. So let's have a look at question A. The area of a square is 42,25 centimeters squared. My question, or what I'm expecting you to do, is to determine the length of the sides of the square. So really importantly, grade 8, what I've given you is the area. So instead of me asking you to work out the area, I am now giving you the area. And I want you to go backwards and work out what the side length is of your square in order to give you that area that I gave you. If this is our square, I don't know, my square went weird there. It's still a bit weird. We know that a square has all 4 sides equal in length. I'm also telling you that the area of the square, so this whole space that it takes up, is the 42,25 centimeters squared. We want to go back, so sort of work backwards, and we want to figure out what are these side lengths of my square. So I want you guys to give this a try. Okay, try it by yourselves. Let's see what we get. The only thing I am going to give you is that the area of a square, if you didn't take a screenshot, is side squared. That's how we work out the area of a square. So let's see what we get. Answers in the chat. Obviously, if you've got questions, just ask. Let's see. And guys, you can check yourself. So once you have the S, sub it back into that formula. So say the side squared and make sure you do get 42,25. Remember, this is a length, so it's not an area, so we shouldn't have centimeters squared or anything like that. It's just a normal length, so normal centimeters. I've only seen 2 answers so far. I would like a few more. 3, nice. 4, 5, keep them coming. Nice, guys. Okay, so we know the area. So we can substitute that in 42,25. We don't know what the side length is, but that's fine. We can solve for it because what we have is an equation. So I want S, I don't want S squared, which means I'm going to square root both sides in order to get rid of the squared, solving an equation. And when I square root 42,25, I get 6.5 centimeters. So my side length here is 6.5 centimeters. If you go and substitute it back, so if you do a quick check for yourself, and you say your area is equal to side squared, so 6,5 squared, you get 42,25. And because it's the same area as what I gave you, you know that you've done your working out correctly. Right, so one skill that we need to be able to do in terms of area is to work backwards from a given area to a dimension. So with that being said, I want you guys to try question B by yourselves. It's basically exactly the same question. I am just using a different number. So let's see what we get for question B. I'm going to leave question A there just in case you need it to help you. But let's see what we get for B. And again, you can double check yourself if you need. Let's go, guys. Nice, grade 8s. And grade 8s, particularly for questions like this, if you need a diagram to help you, and I haven't given you one, like I did in the first question, draw a diagram. Like, if you can help yourself in any way, and I often find diagrams very useful. It doesn't have to be perfect, doesn't have to be pretty. If it helps you, do it. Oops, sorry. Okay, let's have a see. So we know what our area is. I gave that to you. You don't really need to question it. So area of a square, just remember, is side squared. So 90,25 is equal to side squared. I obviously don't want side squared. I want the side. So I'm going to square root both sides in order to get rid of the square, leaving me with just S. And if I square root 90,25, I get that my side length is 9.5 centimeters. Again, double check yourself, substitute it back into your area formula. Make sure you get 90,25. You do. And so if you can check yourself, do. And I always say this to my kids, when you're sitting there twiddling your thumbs for that last 15 minutes, last hour, whatever it is, check. Use that time constructively. Check your answers. Okay, so let's take screenshots of these two, please. And then I'm going to give you a third one. Similar, but slightly different shape. Oh, excuse me. And remember, guys, if you do have questions, please use the chat and ask. Alrighty, so let's try question C. So I'm going to read it with you, and we'll just make it a bit bigger so we can see what we're doing. Now, like I said, slightly different shape. So I have said that the length of a rectangle is triple its width. if the area of the rectangle is 27 centimeters squared, determine the length and width of the rectangle. So this is quite a complex question. So what I would do is I would draw a picture for myself and apply this information here. The fact that the length is triple the width. I'm going to give you guys a few minutes to try, right? Because this is the type of question that we give you as like a problem solving type of question, and we all panic. So try it by yourself when it's no pressure, like you're not in an exam, you've got some time to try and figure it out. Let's see what we get, and then I'll talk you through how we would deal with this type of question. If you're feeling stuck, remember, just put a question on the chat, or it's not a lot of us. If you want to raise your hand, do so, but let's give it a try. And I'm not, is that your answer, the 3 centimeters? I just want to make sure. Is that your answer for this question C? Remember, guys, you can check yourself. Once you have a length and a width, substitute it back into your area of a rectangle formula and make sure you get 27 centimeters squared. Grade 8, I'm very, very impressed. Like, you should all be incredibly proud of yourselves.
You guys are doing really, really well. Yeah. Well done.
I'm going to give you 1 more minute and we'll go through it. Just ignore me while I fiddle with the screen. Okay, let's see. So here's my rectangle. It says the length is triple the width. So guys, I would say, okay, cool. So let my width be represented by x. Because if this is x, which means this is x, sorry, the length is triple that. Now triple x is 3 times x. So my length would be 3x and 3x. And this is why I was saying earlier, diagram is so useful. Obviously, if you can visualize this in your head, that's awesome. But if you can't, just to be able to see on a diagram what you're working with, so nice. Because now I know that the area of my rectangle is length times breadth. We know that the area is 27 centimeters squared. We've said the length is 3x and my breadth is x. And now I've got an equation. So on the right-hand side, 3x times x. So just remember signs, numbers, variables. Positive times a positive is a positive. 3 times our coefficient 1 is 3. X times x, x squared. I can solve my equation. First thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to divide both sides by 3 in order to get rid of that coefficient, which means that 9 is equal to x squared. And the next thing that I'm now going to have to do is I'm going to have to square root both sides in order to get the x alone. And we know that the square root of 9 technically is plus or minus 3, but because it's a length, we get that x is equal to 3. Now remember, I've said that x is my width. So what I now know is that my width is equal to 3 centimeters, and my length is triple that. So 3 times 3 is 9 centimeters. If you want to check yourself, sub it back into your area formula. 3 times 9 is 27 centimeters squared. So really, really importantly from this question, read carefully, okay? Because if you didn't read the question carefully, you would miss out on important information. And if you need to draw a diagram, okay, they are so useful. I draw a diagram to this day when I have questions like this because it just helps me visualize what it is that I'm doing. All right, guys, so let's take our screenshots. If anyone has any questions, now's the time to ask. Gonna be honest, I can't remember if I let you screenshot the first two. So let's screenshot this one and then I'll go back to A and B just in case. And then we're going to do one more before we take a break. The screenshots, any questions, feel free to raise your hand. Oh, my cups have got heat. Oi. Okay. Just in case, because like I said, genuinely can't remember. I think I did. Now that I'm seeing it like this, I think I did. But just in case, if you didn't screenshot A and B, there it is. Thank you, Lubanzi. I have these moments where I can't remember 5 minutes ago. Okay, nice, guys. All right, so the question I want you to try now is this question B, which I'm just going to move up for us. So determine the area of this shape over here. I want you to try it. See how you go. The only thing I'm going to say is we don't have a formula for T-looking shapes. So the way that we can deal with a composite or a more complex shape is to break it up for ourselves. And that might mean breaking the shape up into rectangles that you can then work out the individual areas of and then add together. Right, but let's give this one a try by ourselves. Let's see what we come up with. We'll go through it, obviously. Again, I'm going to give you a few minutes, and then we'll have a look at the answers. Just look very carefully at what dimensions I have given you, so what lengths I have given you, which I haven't, and how you can use all the information you have to go and work out your area. Remember, area, so units squared. Okay, in grade 8, what I want you to know as well is that there are lots of different ways to do this. So if when I do it, if your working out is a bit different, don't stress. There are lots of ways to do it. I will try and point out how, like the different ways that we can do it before we start, but there are a couple different ways that you can deal with this. I'm going to give you another 2 or so minutes. Okay, 1 more minute, and then we'll go through it. Okay, guys, let's have a see. So like I said, there's a few different ways that you can do this, and my advice is break the shape up into shapes you can work with. So when you get a composite shape like this, look out for circles, triangles, squares, rectangles, etc., etc., because you can work out the area of those individual shapes and just add it together. Right, so probably the easiest way is to say, okay, well, if I just divide this T shape up into 2 rectangles, got a rectangle here at the top, a rectangle at the bottom. If I work out the area of those 2 rectangles, add them together, I have the area of my shape. Perfect. You didn't have to divide it like that. So another way you could have divided this is into 2 smaller rectangles on the side and then 1 big rectangle in the middle. That's fine. My advice though is try and minimize the number of shapes you create. So rather than 3 or 4 different shapes, if you can make 2, make 2. Another way that you could do this, which I don't think many would think of, but some do, so it's important to acknowledge, is if you pretend that this is actually a whole complete rectangle, so work out the area of the green rectangle, and then subtract these 2 smaller rectangles on the side, you're left with the T shape. So that's another way that you can do it. Like I said, not a lot of people do it like that, but some people do, and it's perfectly fine. Okay, so if we have a look at our first rectangle, it's this long, skinny rectangle at the top. Its length is 15. Its breadth or width is 3, nice and easy. So the area of rectangle A, I've labeled it A, is going to be 15 times 3, which is 45 centimeters squared. Nice and easy, done with that. The next rectangle that we have is this sort of smaller rectangle down at the bottom. And what I need to be careful of is that I know neither the length nor the width of this rectangle. I have to go and work that out. So if we have a look at the information we have, we know that this whole length from top all the way to the bottom of the T is 9 centimeters. We also know that the side length of this top rectangle is 3 centimeters. So if I've already accounted for 3 of my 9, what remains down at the bottom is 6 centimeters. So this length down here is 6 centimeters. I'm going to do a very similar thing for the width. I know that the whole width of the T is 15. I know that I've got 4 centimeters on either side. And so if I've already got 4 centimeters and 4 centimeters, what remains in the middle is 7 centimeters. And so the area of my second rectangle is then 7 by 6 centimeters, which is 42 centimeters squared. Once I have that, I can work out my total area. So the total area is the sum of those two answers. I'm just going to write it here, 45 plus 42. Let's do this rather, which gives me 87 centimeters squared. Now again, grade 8, if you did not divide it up like that, that's fine. You will still get the same answer. Try and minimize the number of shapes, like I say, so don't create 20 small, tiny little shapes that you now have to work out the individual areas of. Try and keep it as minimal shapes as possible. But if you divided it up differently, you will still get the same answer. All right, so that is how we would do a sort of composite shape. We break it up into smaller shapes, work out the area of those smaller shapes, and add them together. So let's take a screenshot. If anyone has any questions, now's the time to raise your hand and ask. Remember, you should have been doing corrections as we went along. Hopefully this all makes sense. Like I said, if you did split it up differently and you got the same answer, it's fine. Any questions, grade 8? There were a couple of varied answers. So I hope those people that didn't get 87 have been able to see why they didn't. Sorry guys, it's so hot here. If you can hear the road outside, I apologize, but I can't sit here with the window closed. Alrighty, good. No questions. Hope we all have our screenshots. Let us have a look at our brain break for the day. I wish I had some snowflakes covering me right now. I truly do. You know how this works, guys. Last equation, I want the answer of. Let's see what we get. First person to get it right, I will shout you out and you can let us know how you got it. I need to figure it out first as well. Please just take note of where you've got 2 reindeer, 2 snowflakes, 2 Christmas trees. That's obviously important. Well done, Zimi. Oops. Right, so I'm waiting for that right final answer. Let's see. Ziva, well done. Literally as I figured it out. You're right on my tail. Okay, so Ziva, do you want to raise your hand to explain it for us? Nice.
Hello, ma'am.
Hi, how are you?
Good, and you?
I'm all right, thank you.
So for most of these, I just guessed, but just played around with the numbers.
That's okay.
So for the snowflakes, I said 54 divided by 6. So
Okay.
then I got 9 for each.
Okay, so one snowflake is 9, so 2 is 18.
Yes.
Awesome.
And then for the reindeers, I got 4. And then for the trees, I got 6.
Nice.
So when there's 2 reindeers, it was 8. And then one
Nice.
snowflake is 9. And 2 trees are 12.
Good.
So I said 9 times 12 plus 8.
Perfect. Guys, bod mass, exactly that. 9 times 12 is 108. Plus 8 is 116. Very, very nicely done. And Ziva, you didn't just play around with numbers. You thought about it. As much as you might think you just played, you definitely thought about it. So well done. And guys, I mean, that's it. We've done many of these. So hopefully we're getting into the rhythm. And like I said, this is to help with equations. If you can do this, you can solve an equation. Okay, that's all it is. Right, guys, that was a very quick. So I'm going to give you 2 minutes just to stretch, do what you need to do, run to the loo if you need to. I'm carrying on at 22. So be ready. Has anyone in Joburg and had that crazy hail? My sister lives in Joburg and she's like sent me pictures of hail, like the size of like tennis balls. The hail was hailing. Yeah, it seemed that way.
Yeah, and here in Joburg, it was crazy.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, my sister sent me pictures and like a voice note. And initially, I thought she had sent me a voice note of her making popcorn. And I was like, I don't understand why I need to share this experience with you. And then she sent me a message saying, no, that's hail. It's not popcorn. It's hail landing on like cars and like tables and stuff.
It was full. It was like if we had snow in Joburg. It was,
Oh,
but just certain parts of Joburg.
yeah.
It was crazy, and it was beautiful, actually.
Oh, and Ladysmith as well. Wow. Yeah, it's that turn of the season. The weather's a bit weird. Doesn't really know what it wants to do yet. Alrighty, grade 8. Nice. Okay. Let us get the show on the road. So I'm actually going to skip the first one and I'm going to give you the second one. Mostly because it's not like super hard, but we need to be able to read the question carefully. So I'm not going to help you. I am just going to read the question with you. You're going to try it by yourselves. So it says in the diagram below, A, B, C, D, and E, F, G, H are both rectangles. Okay, so it's really important we now know what shape we have. BC is equal to 14 centimeters, CD is equal to 8 centimeters, and EF is 6 centimeters. If the shaded region's area, so the area of the shaded region is 64 centimeters squared, determine the value of Y, which is essentially the length of EH, so this length up here. So I want you guys to try this by yourselves. Okay, if you're feeling really stuck, pop a message on the chat or pop a message to me or Yolanda and we can help you out a little bit. But I want you to try. Okay, you guys are capable of this. This is definitely like I won't call it problem solving, but a complex question. where there's a little bit that we need to figure out and actually read our question carefully. So let's give this one a try. Let's see what we get. I want the value of y given all of the information here in the question.
This one is a little bit challenging, huh? But I know you guys are up for the challenge. That's where it gets exciting. That's where it gets exciting, guys. Let's go.
And guys, if you can do this, you can pretty much deal with any area and perimeter question. So I'm not saying if you can't do this, you're not capable, but this is a harder question. So if we can manage this, we're on the right track. If we can't manage it just yet, that's absolutely fine. When we go through it, see how far you got, see what you still needed to do, and why you were maybe a bit confused about moving on to the next step. Oh, golly, Miss Molly. Keep those answers coming. Give you a few more minutes. I know this is a tricky one, so I'm going to give you a bit of time. I'm going to give you one more minute, then we're going to go through it. And again, guys, if you find this confusing, that's fine. Like, it's absolutely fine. This is not supposed to be a nice, easy, quick question. It is supposed to be a harder question. when we go through it, you need to make sure you're doing corrections, you're asking questions where needed, so that you can answer a question like this if you are given it. Okay, let's have a see. All right, so guys, if you're struggling to start, what I would do is I would ask myself, how do I work out a shaded area? In any shaded area question, you're talking about the area of your main shape or your bigger shape, and you're subtracting areas within it. So in this case, in order for us to find our shaded area, so if I've got enough space here, we would have to take the area of rectangle A, B, C, D, so the big rectangle, and subtract the area of the smaller rectangle E, F, G, H. So if we had the big rectangle and we took out the smaller one, we'd be left with the shaded area. And now that I understand that concept, again, I can go and solve for what I need. We know that the shaded area is 64 centimeters squared. We know that to work out the area of a rectangle, we say length times breadth. And in rectangle ABCD, so let's just grab a highlighter here. So ABCD is this big rectangle. We know that the length is 14 and the breadth 8. 14 times 8 minus the area of the smaller rectangle EFGH. Come on. So the smaller rectangle, the width is 6, the length is what I don't know. Okay, that's my y value. So y times 6. And this equation I can solve. So 64 is 64. 14 times 8 is 112. Minus y times 6 is 6y. And therefore we have 64 equals 112, minus 6y. It's an equation. We solve the equation. We're going to subtract 112 on both sides in order to get this negative 6y term alone. So get that y term alone. I want to say that's negative 48, but let me just double check my maths. So 64 minus 112 is minus 48 is equal to negative 6y. And then because the goal is to solve for y, I'm going to divide both sides by negative 6. That will leave me with just y. And negative 48 divided by negative 6, negative divided by negative is a positive. Leaves me with 8 centimeters being my value for, y. And so once you actually understand what's going on, once you understand how to work out the different parts of this question, it's actually very easy. It's solving an equation. The trick or the important bit here is actually being able to see what it is that you're working with and how you use information to set up an equation to solve. Right, so let's take our screenshots. If anyone has any questions here, now's the time to ask. This was a harder question, so if you do have questions, please ask me. Please make sure you've done your corrections as needed. And I think we got time for one more. Again, guys, I just want to say the fact that a lot of you got 8 centimeters quite quickly as well. Very impressive. Clearly, we have been studying hard for paper 2 or for maths in general if you don't do 2 papers. Okay, I'm about to move away, so make sure you got your screenshots. I don't see any questions. I don't see any hands, so I'm assuming we're all okay and know where we might have gone wrong or know what we need to do in order to get our answer. I just want to see what I have going on here. Right. I'm going to end off with this question here, question E. So it says the shape below, let's grab a highlighter, is 3/4 of a circle. Okay, so you only have 3/4 of a circle. We can clearly see we're missing 1/4. Right. The area of the shape, so the area of the 3/4 circle is 120 centimeters squared. So basically this shaded area, which I'm not capable of coloring in a line, but the shaded area here, that is the 120 centimeters squared. I have asked you to determine the radius of the circle. Right, so we're going to end off here. I'm going to give you 2 or 3 minutes. Let's give this a try. The only bit of information I will give you, just in case you don't have it, just because it's the first time we're working with a circle, is that the area of a full circle is equal to pi r squared. So let's see what we get. Remember, guys, if you can't see the screen, unpin and repin my screen, or you might need to log out and log back in again. Give you 2 or 3 more minutes. Haven't seen any answers yet. It is a harder question again, so if you're struggling, that's again okay. Sorry, I don't know why it's all moving. And again, guys, remember this is 3/4 of a circle. Okay, let's have a C. Right, clearly this one trips us up more than the shaded one. So guys, what we have is 3/4 of a circle here. So this area of 120 centimeters squared is for 3/4 of my circle. So 3/4 of the area pi r squared is equal to the 120. Now this 3/4 pi r squared, if you want to write this a bit differently, you can say 3 pi r squared over 4. It's the same thing. Basically, the numerator sits with the pi r squared, the denominator in the denominator. It makes it a little bit easier to solve. If it makes no difference to you, then it makes no difference to you. That's fine. So now we start with our inverse operations. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to times both sides by 4, which means that we get 480, I think, if I can do maths in my head. Yep. 120 times 4 is then 3 pi r squared is equal to 480. Next thing that we're going to do is we're going to divide both sides by 3 pi. Now remember, pi is a number. We just use a symbol to represent it because of the fact that it goes on to infinity. We can't write all of pi, so we just use a symbol. And so when we say divide by 3 pi on both sides, I'm left with just the r squared on the left, and 480 divided by 3 pi is 50,9258179. Now guys, I'm not going to round that off. It's not my final answer, so I can't round off. Once, however, I have square rooted both sides in order to get the r alone, I do have my final answer. And so my radius is equal to 7,1364, so on, so on, so on. Final answer, I can round off to 2 decimal places. My radius is 7,14 centimeters. And so, oh God, I miss Molly. And so through my inverse operations and through the solving of that equation, we were able to get our radius. Alrighty, so hopefully we got that.